Hello, my name is Danielle St. John. I am a congressional candidate running for Congress in California's 49th District. Um, I did a campaign update yesterday, but after, I think just like slightly after, we got just a ton of questions. So I wanted to just do, and I think I've got enough questions to do a Q&A, but definitely like ask questions in the comments, and we're going to keep track of those. And so I'll just keep answering questions just as long as you guys have them. So um, I I mean, I think okay. So and the questions came from Jacob Jacob Sabat. So thank you, Jacob, for all of those questions. But okay, so I don't know if you want to just get right into the questions.
Okay, so let me know if you can't hear me. The first two questions kind of go together. It's getting the corruption influence of money out of politics. He's asking for yes or no, but I think we should talk a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting the corrupting influence of money out of politics, and the question two, getting rid of gerrymandered districts, yes or no? That's where the politicians pick the voters instead of the voters picking the politicians.
Right. Okay. So yes, I am definitely for getting money out of politics. It's actually my number one platform issue, and so far I have not taken any corporate money. I don't plan on taking any corporate money. I actually haven't even taken any business money at all. It's all been personal, individual donations. So, and in-kind donations, lots of in-kind donations. So I think that's kind of like that. Those go hand in hand. Is that especially with we've seen since Citizens United kind of just poured some fuel onto the fire that already existed. But there's just infinite amounts of money being thrown into buying. My district has 700,000 people in it, and the amount of money that gets thrown into these very small districts to sway voters to vote for somebody, it's pretty tragic. I think it's kind of it's pretty good indicator of where our democracy is going, and it's not going to the people; it's going to the highest bidder. So yes, definitely those are problems that I think are the top of the top priority to fix. That's where we have to start. I'm not sure that there's any other issue that can't be solved by money out of politics, but it has to start with money out of politics.
Right. Making sure our elections cannot be rigged. I don't know who would say yes or no to that. And then also, kind of in the same breath, getting rid of the superdelegates system.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw this up just for this question. I had to do a little memeing, right, about Michael Vu. This issue is something that if besides money out of politics. But I think money out of politics actually is if we can get me elected, right, then that's how we prove that we can get money out of politics. That's running a campaign where we take no corporate money is the steps to do that. But this issue hits near and dear because in San Diego there was a lot of election fraud going on in the 2016 primary. And this is the person in charge. This is Michael Vu. And you can read the meme. He is, he was convicted, or he was charged with election fraud. I don't want to misspeak, but he committed election fraud. And I believe his underlings were charged. He committed election fraud in Ohio and then was transferred to San Diego with a pay raise. Only 10,000, but still with a pay raise, and then did it again in 2016 and was convicted of election fraud. So and still has his job. There's no consequences, and it's just kind of maddening. But one thing that I really would like to be an activist for is for no matter who you want to vote for. If you want to vote for Doug Applegate, or if you want to vote for, that Schoonover person, or, Jordan Mills, or anybody, it doesn't matter who you vote for. Everybody should unite behind this particular problem, because nobody's vote is going to count if we just continue to turn a blind eye to the fact that our elections are being stolen, and that there is just no consequences. There just doesn't seem to be any consequences. You could just do whatever you want. You can go into a smoke-filled back room and pick your candidate if you want to, which was a quote from the DNC fraud lawsuit. So there are some people trying to stand up to this system. It's not, this is not a problem that is just in San Diego, but this is a problem that affects my election specifically. So, but there are people on the national level, Jared and Elizabeth Beck, lawyers in Florida, who are championing, what is it, H.A. Goodman, championing. Yeah, anyway, they're doing a great job on this lawsuit, and they're keeping it going, that basically they're suing the DNC for fraud. And one of the arguments in court from the Democratic lawyers the DNC lawyers were, we are a private, organization, and we could go into a smoky-filled back room, and pick our candidate like we used to. But, we at least put on the facade, the veneer, I guess, of an election. And it's like, it's outrage. Like, I mean, everybody should be outraged. I don't know how anybody could read this. I mean, of course it was suppressed in the media, but I don't know how anybody could read these court documents and still be a Democrat. It is just such a symptom of the problem. So yes, I'm absolutely, in favor of fixing this system. And, if you guys can please call the Register of Voters in San Diego, or email. I've got the phone number and the email here on the screen, and just ask them what they're going to do in our primary to make sure that our votes are actually counted. Because so far, they've got this guy in particular, Michael Vu, has an awful track record. So that's all I have to say about that.
All right. What about National Defense Authorization Act?
Obviously that has to happen. It's really taken away the, congressional power to do anything. And that's, what I'm running for Congress, and it needs to be taken back. But, it's, I guess I think this problem is so much bigger than these specific issues, like Citizens United, and and these very particular issues. Look at our overall spending, what we're doing, on our military budget. This is a symptom of a much bigger problem, which all stems back to the first question of, we need to get money out of politics. And so that's, I think we should really try to focus our energies on the things that are going to make the most change. So yes, I do think that that's something that we should be fighting for, to get that back. But we do need to see that it's a symptom of a bigger problem, which is, there's just money in politics.
1 second. I'm going to raise the microphone level.
Okay.
So if you still can't hear us, let us know.
They can't hear?
Someone mentioned that.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
Just me or you? Just you or me?
I would probably do both. So that's why I just raised the microphone.
Okay.
Let's try that.
Undoing the militarization of police.
Yes, absolutely. These, it's really switched from, I don't know when, they stopped protecting and serving, but they have. And I think the whole culture needs to change. I think it has a lot to do with marginalization. This whole like blue, culture kind of they separate themselves from the rest, and so basically they put themselves above the people. If they make mistakes, instead of owning up, it's covered up, and that's just okay. And then we give them shit like tanks. Like, no, not only that, but the laws that they're enforcing are not benefiting the people at all. It's not, it's not for public safety. It's not. There's no reason that like that a plant should be have a SWAT team sent in after it. I think that it's a pretty big misuse of our taxpayer funds to be spending so much. I mean, and that just leads right into the prison industrial complex too. It's a pipeline kind of mentality. So yeah, I think that it's all again a symptom of a much bigger problem, which is that our systems have all been purchased, and they no longer represent the people, and the militarization of our police force is definitely a symptom of that. So yeah, we should not do that.
Well, I'm sure you can agree that this has never been a problem ever, but what about dismantling the surveillance state? Yes or no?
Oh yes, definitely. That's and I think the first step to fixing this problem is for America to acknowledge this problem, right? And that's again, one problem is our media, right? They're not really covering. The WikiLeaks exposed that. Well, I mean, I think Edward Snowden did too, if you're paying attention back then too. But there's been multiple sources that have proven that we are being spied on, that everything that we say and do is being recorded and kept somewhere. And whether or not anybody sees it, whether or not they're using it, well, that's debatable. But it's being stored, and that's a right that's been taken from us, and everybody really needs to take that seriously. And it really shocks me still every time I hear somebody say, and it's usually the older generation, that say like, well, I've got nothing to hide, so I'm not worried about it. No, you should be worried about it. You should definitely be worried about it.
And that goes right into the next question about encouraging, rewarding, and protecting whistleblowers who report wrongdoing.
Absolutely, yes, because Edward Snowden was the one that gave us, I think, the original. No, there was probably other whistleblowers before him, but I think he was the first one that was like mainstream about exposing that the NSA just has everything, has all of our emails, has anything that you thought was private in your life, was probably recorded. Now, like I said, I don't know if they're using it, but why wouldn't they? I mean, they did with Donald Trump, right? They were able to do that. I think they were able to get. It was like. These I think they bulk all of our information together, right? So this is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how I kind of understand it is if you have a say New York area code and you made a phone call, all of them with in that certain area code, maybe a couple area codes are saved, but they're not necessarily looked at. But like when FISA warrants come up, they can go and they can open up information, and not even necessarily just for Trump stuff. If you just happen to have the same area code as Trump, it's potential that your information could also be given directly to the FBI. So this is a really slippery slope, and I really think that everybody should be concerned, even if you do things on the up and up, even if you think you've got nothing to hide, you do. You do.
Or even if you want to run for Congress and the opposing party doesn't like you.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's exactly what we're seeing with Trump right now, is that maybe I'll get some pushback for this, but the Democrats, with Obama having direct, knowledge of, possibly even, was the one who said go on this project, but spied on, a campaign that is, an opposing campaign. So basically, they were using our resources that our tax dollars pay for to get information, to spy on competition. And that is a big, big no-no. We saw that in Watergate. This is like Watergate on steroids. I've said it many times. This is like Watergate on steroids. And because of where our media is right now, this massive, massive scandal is, it's kind of been silent on at least the left side of the media, on the left-wing media. So I think, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. Completely changing course. Moving the nation to 100% renewable clean energy in less than 4 years. Yes or no?
Yes, it has to happen. We
4
have,
years.
what's that?
I said also you said 4 years. I don't know if you want to. That's
I mean,
kind of like it seems like that's something a government would do, saying this is your deadline.
Yeah, I think that might be, a little conservative. I would like to push it up a little faster than that. There is no reason that we need to be taking as much oil out of the ground. There's no reason that we need to be using non-renewable energy when we have, infinite renewable energy sources out there. We should be putting, and think of the jobs. Think of the jobs that we could create, by rolling out a solar program for or wind, or whatever sustainable renewable energy is best, for your region. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. Yes, I support it as a Band-Aid, though. Like, I really think that it would be a good lesson for people who still are holdouts on MMT. I think that would be an easy. It's a nice cushion, right? So that can alleviate some symptoms that we're having right now. It would really help a lot of folks out right now. And so, and especially because people are so crazy, like busy, trying to survive, that they're not really, able to focus on anything but certain sources, right? So I really think that universal basic income would help some people out, but I would always be pushing it as look what we can do. We can do universal basic income because money isn't really what you think it is. We can afford things like war. We can always afford war. We can one side asks for a disgusting number, in their budget for the military, a dollar amount, and then the other side doubles it. It's like, fuck. I'm sorry, but anybody who says, how are we going to pay for that? $21 trillion is just missing. They're just I don't know where I went. $21 trillion. $21 trillion. Do you know what $21 trillion could do? They're not even sorry about it. They're maybe had a press conference or whatever, sent it out on a press release on a Friday of a holiday weekend. It's ridiculous that anybody would say that we don't have money for social programs. We are literally funding the destruction of the planet with our tax dollars. We can definitely afford, a universal basic income. We can afford to feed people. So yes, but I like to use it as a stepping stone to get people to see, that we can do whatever we want with our tax dollars, and we can make money, for what the people want versus what special interests want.
Along those lines, the next three questions, just because they're sort of related: 12-month paid maternity leave and paid maternity leave, canceling the student debt, and free education, because a lot of that all goes with how you're going to pay for it and money, and where's it coming from.
Right, yeah, so those are all, yeah, exactly. All of those things can be achievable and more, right? Like you don't, I want to get to a place where if both parents want to be out of the home and away from their children, because they're bettering themselves, and their communities, then yeah, that's fine. That's great. But if you're having to jump right back into work because you can't afford to feed yourselves, I would like to be able to. I mean, we can have people stay home for as long as they want with their kids, and we can pay for education, and we can pay. We can wipe out student loan. We can do loans. We can do a lot of things to help a lot of people right now. As long as we know that this is a Band-Aid, and that as soon as we stop being vigilant, then the system will start being corrupted again, right? So I would like to get to a system that doesn't have to, so that we don't have to be fighting for the power that we should have. That I don't ever want to get back to this system that we're in now, where we're just begging for concessions for our tax dollars. And and so these are all really great ideas, great things that we, as a people, would love to put their tax dollars into. So and that would be, and these are, and I think that a lot of people that are in establishment politics right now, who would be listening to this, would think that we're just, batshit unicorns, crazy right now, right? Talking about how fairy tales, like these are all fairy tales to people who, who buy into this pull yourself up by the bootstraps kind of mentality. So, but yes, I think that we all of those things are great, and if we can achieve them with our government, I am all for it. But what I want to do is kind of create a world where we don't have to be fighting for these basic needs. So
that's the good ones.
those are the good ones. Okay. And is there any in the comments?
No, we're good. A bunch of comments, but no questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's one that's that, I mean, I guess we can try the. Are there any other like? There's a 9/11 one that I'm trying to like.
You want me to not? I didn't think it was that worthy, but I'll throw it out if you like.
Or and there's a
The appointment of a special prosecutor to bring justice to the neocons and their accomplices who are responsible for the attack of 9/11. Yes or no?
Oh well, yes, definitely. Well, I mean,
You must accept the premise of his entire question to answer yes.
yes, but no. Okay, so 9/11. I think everybody, just because I don't want to sound all like preachy and teachy, I think a lot of people already know this stuff. But if you don't know who was in establishment politics during 9/11, who was working in the FBI, and CIA too. Yeah, I mean, why not look at research? But look up who was in charge then. I mean, it's pretty basic, information to Google. But look who was in charge and look who was around at those times, and you'll start to kind of paint a picture of what's going on right now and where the trouble is coming from. And it's starting to, I'm sure, like, Trump is going nuts with his tweets right now, but really, like, he's just letting us know what we already knew, that the system is completely corrupt and has been for a really long time. And you can start to see a pattern. The people who were around during 9/11, are also the ones who are still in power now, causing a lot of trouble. 9/11 itself, I don't believe the official story. I'll go on record and say that. But I don't really trust government, right? So I don't really believe their official story on anything. And the people who are, talking about, the crazy conspiracy theories and stuff like chemtrails and flat Earth and all of these things, that is a direct backlash for decades of being lied to. So, you know what? I mean, you did it. So the establishment did this, and if people are questioning, I don't think that anybody should be ridiculed for questioning anything. So, go down whatever rabbit hole you want to go down. Just look for truth. And so nine. What?
Go for it. Sorry.
But 9/11, yeah, I don't think. I mean, and yeah, so go back and look, go back and do some research on 9/11. And I know it's hard for people. Everybody remembers where they were and what they were doing on 9/11 for a reason. It traumatized us, but it was meant to traumatize us. Just go do your own honest research. Don't go to Snopes. Don't maybe get out the spray bottle. But do your own honest research on 9/11 and see what you come up with. I don't run into many people who believe the official story anymore. So I'm okay talking about it.
So different one. Jeff Pearson asks, what about a system of like an altruistic system? Do you have any economic models that might fit that?
Well,
So it's cooperative economy.
yeah, exactly. I mean, yes, cooperative economy is, is what I'm running on. I can put the link to our 7-minute video below. Thank you, below. But how I translate that into our political system is money out of politics and then profit out of food, news, and health. And I think that's a really good place to start. But the cooperative, but honestly, moving from a currency-based economy to a resource-based economy, I think is the way that that's going to benefit the people the most immediately. So.
Will says, you recently said you didn't believe President Trump was part of the establishment. I'm wondering what evidence you're using to make that statement when he's following the same playbook any conservative would use. By saying he's not included suggests he's actually fighting for regular people, and I fail to see that evidence.
Okay. So as far as the legislation that's being passed right now, the reason I say that Trump is not part of the establishment is because I don't think that he had anything to do with the writing of those laws. I don't think that he had anything to do. I think that what Trump is doing is giving the kids the candy store because he doesn't really know what he's doing with that. Like he doesn't know how all of the tradition. He doesn't know. He doesn't know how to write a bill. He doesn't know any of this stuff. He doesn't know how to write legislation. He doesn't know any of it. So this tax bill was dusted off from a back shelf somewhere. It was written a long, long time ago, and somebody had it in the back of their mind that when we have this much of a majority, this is what we're going to ram through. And that's my theory anyway. And when it comes to war, I think there's a difference between I think there's a difference between new money and old money. I mean, maybe there's better terms for it, but there is I believe that an established plan for this country that has nothing to do with the people, and I think that there's people who have benefited as a side effect of of a handful of families, it's like an oligarchy kind of status, and I don't think that that Trump fits into that long established plan. So you look at especially like the who was that guy? What was his name? There was a colonel that did an interview about right after 9/11.
Oh, Wesley Clark.
Wesley Clark did an interview after 9/11 talking about how there was basically a plan to get us into 7 wars in 5 years or something like that, and he listed the majority of the wars that he listed all of the countries we're at war with, right? I mean, there's a few of them that are not there, but war is a tricky business. And you can see that the people who are in power, you've got the Bushes, there's a plan like set in place and kind of continued, into the next administration, regardless of whether there's a red or a blue. I mean, it doesn't matter. The plan is established in a way, I think, and Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, right? So, as she was, I believe, prepped for president because, she knew what the plan was and she was a war hawk. And that's, why Kissinger was like, her mentor or whatever. Like, she is a war criminal and he is a war criminal. And, so that's Vietnam, right? And so now here we are again, like lying to the people. Like Vietnam, they're talking about like bodies floating in the water, Americans' bodies floating in the water. Well, I know, I'm not going to name any names, but like I know somebody, who's in the San Diego boating community who was actually on the Ticonderoga looking at the radar screen when all of this stuff was supposedly happening in the Gulf of Tonkin. And he said, no, it didn't happen. And I think, there are these big elaborate plans to get us into these wars. And look how many wars we're in right now. Look, I mean, they're perpetual wars. And I don't think that Donald Trump was a part of that plan. I think he was, let's even call him, maybe he's just a greedy businessman. Maybe he's just in it for himself. But I don't think that he's part of this war elite.
Take over the planet.
Take over the, yes, I guess. I mean, I don't like, yeah, basically. Exactly. Like look at what we're doing in the Middle East. There is a design to this that, if we actually believed what we're supposed to, there should be a stop if if the Republicans are evil, right? And I knew that. I just knew in 2000 that Bush was evil, and we were in for trouble. But equally, I knew that, when Obama, won, that we were going to get out of this mess, right? We were going to get out of these two awful wars that Bush, led us into, and of choice that the American people have.
I don't know if you want to take this one, but maybe you know the answer. I certainly do not. Are you going to support Kurdistan if you win the election? The Kurds need America's support, and people like you could help them.
I am against any kind of conflict. I support everybody. I don't, I support peace above everything. And if you are not being peaceful, then I don't support you, right? So I want to talk to you. I want to know like what your beef is. But I think that yes, I would support anybody. I support peace, and so I support anybody who wants to talk to me about getting that done, and also help me accomplish my goal of the, complete and total freedom of every man, woman, and child on the planet. So, yes, if they want to talk, we'll talk.
Yeah, I think that, there's some disagreement about whether Trump is the establishment or a current puppet. A lot of it, I would say, we don't know. But that's what some of the comments are.
I think he's a little bit more free to do some things that others aren't. I don't know. Maybe he hasn't been in politics as long, and so there's just not as much. He was basically a private citizen up until a certain point. Hillary gets all of this scrutiny about her emails, and they're like, oh, well, why are you giving Trump slack about things that he did in his past with Stormy Daniels, but you're still bringing up the emails? Well, he was a private citizen. If he was a scumbag, I don't. That's his prerogative. It's not as if, she had, basically an unencrypted, she was giving our secrets away. And people, people go to jail for that kind of stuff. And she's above the law, and that, so.
What if Trump showed that he was actually about regime change and started wars and whatnot?
If he's,
it's like we have, North Korea, Syria, but we have Iran and Israel.
Right. So I've said this before, but I have a theory that we already would have been in World War III if Hillary was president. And I can put the clip in the link if you want to see it. But during the last sarin gas attack, where we bombed that Syrian runway, Hillary did an interview, it's Women for Women, and it was a long interview. I don't know why I was watching it, but but I was watching it anyway. And it was right after the airfield strike, and she was asked about it. She asked if she supported the airfield strike, and she said, "I supported it. I don't know how much good it did, because I heard that Trump gave, the Russians a heads up, to get off the runway, basically, and even more of a heads up than our own Congress got, right?" And so she goes, "I don't know, how long, how much of a lasting effect that could have." So to me, and maybe you'll interpret this differently, but to me, that means that if she was in charge, and by the way, now we know, in hindsight, we know that this gas attack didn't happen. Our officials have already come out and said, "Oops, we were wrong for the second time," and then we did it again, and "Oops, you were wrong for the third time." But in the second time, so basically what that says to me is that if Hillary was presented with this exact same situation, she would not have given the Russians a heads up. So that means that there would have been dead Russian soldiers, right? And that means that there would have been an automatic declaration of war, right? If we bomb and kill soldiers, that's an automatic declaration of war. Alliance is triggered on both sides. It's the recipe for World War III. And the fact that Trump gave them that heads up and nobody died was the only reason that we got this, smoke and mirrors, guided by the beauty, blah, blah bullshit, instead of World War III. So when I say that she's established, I think that was the plan. And, and we can have a debate about it if you want, but that's just my theory, and I can show you the clip if you want. And there's no more questions? Okay, so.
It's a little more chatter, but.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. I guess if you guys just happen to know anybody in media that's willing to do an interview, I'm kind of just doing interviews with everybody who wants to do interviews. I did that conservative radio show last week. That was fun too. So I'll talk to anybody, and if anybody has any good contacts, part of what I'm doing here to try to get money out of politics is to use my social media network to make things happen, like that, and instead of having to pay for it, so that's, anyway, any little bit helps. So also, if you guys would like to, we would love it. We have a YouTube channel where all of these go to. You can actually get it. There's a link on my website. You can go to readytovomit.com, and there's a link to our YouTube channel there. So we would love subscribers if you would like. And then also you can, if you guys want to donate to the campaign, every little bit helps. You can go to crowdpack.com. So I think I'll leave it.
And I believe the donate link from humanitarises.info or readytovomit.com goes to your crowdpack.
Oh yeah. Also, yeah, exactly. Sorry. On the website there is a donation button. So if everything can be found on the website. But also crowdpack. Anyway, so I think I'll leave it there, and I'll talk soon.